So today I'm going to make a bird feeder. I've made a couple of prototypes so far. Both of these were enclosed forms that I cut pieces out of. I've been watching the birds in these for a little while. The red one here, pink, whatever you want to call it, very popular with small birds because the birds need to be able to fit in here to use this kind of feeder. They actually go right in the feeder. This one, used by slightly larger birds, more of a variety. They like to just get right inside and hang out there and have a feast. But the rain gets into both of these because neither one is particularly covered. So this one also is broken. Some contractors are at our house making me a better pottery studio, so I can't be too mad at them. It's going to be worth it. Today I'm going to try a different kind of bird feeder, and I will overlay an image of that over this video so that you can see what I'm aiming for, and fingers crossed that it works out. I'm throwing the body of the bird feeder with 3 kilos of clay, which I've separated into 2 balls to make centering a bit easier. It's just easier to center a smaller amount of clay. See, this is cracking. It's a little short. Or waterlogged. See if we can do the rest without too much water. Okay. Compressing from the outside back to the center, just to try and even out that floor. This clay is still not really centered, but at a certain point you have to either give up or just go with it. I usually choose to go with it because I think you learn a lot from trying to work with clay that isn't doing what you want it to do. But there's nothing wrong with just tearing it off the wheel and starting again. So I'm just evening out the walls here. What I want to do is not break off, but carve off some of this for the bottom drip tray. So probably going to end up too much, not drip tray, tray for the seeds. And I'm okay if it's large because I want to give them lots to perch on, lots of space to have their lunch. Okay. Oh, I'm making things worse. Okay. Much worse. Okay. Oh, splitting off. Yep. Yeah, it's just waterlogged. All right. I guess we're trying again. What I'm going to do this time, instead of what I did last time, I'm going to start pulling from slightly up from the bottom, and then I'll push that extra clay out at the end. So we'll see if this works. That is crazy wobbly. Let's see if we can fix that. Thin spot there. using the rib for two reasons. One is to try and get the wobble out, but also because if I use a rib on the outside, then I don't have to use as much water. And I've used too much water on this clay trying to get it centered. So we're gonna see if we can save it. I'm very invested now. I spent a lot of time centering this thing, and I want it to work. Not exactly straight. All right, let's see if we can do this. Now, the idea is, and I do this with plant pots all the time, push down here. And then kind of open it. The easiest way I've found to do this is kind of pull it out flat and then lift it up with the rib. Now, problem with doing this is that I can't fix it later because it will be inaccessible. Hold the birdseed in, right? Right. Okay, ordinarily I would finish this much better, but I think I've asked a lot of the clay today, so we're just gonna stop. And we'll cut off the top of this because obviously that is not straight. This is definitely thicker on one side than the other. Oh, well. Clean up all the slip. I should clean up the inside, but I'm afraid to touch it anymore. So we're not going to. I'm going to measure the inside of this because what I'm going to do, actually I'm going to measure the outside diameter of that. What I'm going to do now is throw a bowl that's going to go on top. And the idea is that a string will go down through the middle and have a knot in the bottom, and then the bowl will be the lid, and you'll be able to lift it up to put the birdseed in. And we'll cut out some holes for the birds to get to the seed when it's dry. Is this too much clay? Probably. Just trying to get this a little better centered before I put water on it, because I don't want it to get waterlogged like the last one. What I want to make sure is that this is opened at least as wide as this. Air bubble. I'm gonna call that a day. I am not gonna trim off the bottom like I normally would because I feel like it might need it for support. So I'll just lift up the edge and we'll deal with that in the trimming stage. Now, flatten it a little bit more. My tempting fate. Yep. I neglected to film the trimming of these, but honestly, you didn't miss much. This was the bowl that I threw second, and all I did to this one was to shave off the top so that it has a nice rounded edge to it, and put a hole in the middle that's going to be for the rope, which you'll see later. And on this one, same thing. All I did was to kind of make this smooth. It's not round, actually. It's quite uneven, but I don't think you'll notice when it's up on the tree. I think it's going to look super cute, actually. Here, the bottom was thicker than it probably should have been, but as you saw, I had some challenges throwing this thing. So I did kind of trim it a little bit more, so there's a bit of a dip here in the middle. And then I added the spiral thing, not so much for looks, but just to take a little bit more weight out. I didn't want to make a proper foot here because it's going to be hanging in a tree, and I thought that would look weird. And how it's going to look when it's all finished. So that's how it's going to look. You may have noticed that I'm missing something, a place for the birdseed to come out. That's what I'm going to do today. So I could certainly carve a pattern on the top of this. I'm not going to do that. I've invested a lot of time and energy into getting this thing to just survive. So I'm not inclined to get too creative. So the birdseed is going to go in here, and then it has to have spots to come out at the bottom. What am I going to use to do that? Do I cut a circle or do I do a little like door? I think maybe a circle, but a largish circle. I bought this tool from Great White North Pottery, I think it was. Anyway, you can get them anywhere. That just happens to be where I bought this one. And it's a hole cutter, and it's a variable size. So depending on how far you put this in, you get a larger or smaller hole. I did use it to put the holes in the bottom and the top of this. Let's see how it works here. It's going to be hard to get this right down at the bottom. So I'm just looking inside to make sure I haven't gone into the foot of this, which I have not. Okay, that's a pretty small hole. Let's see if we can do better. So it's this that's causing the problem. Just not new. It also happens with the plant pots that I throw that are kind of like this. Usually I pre-drill the hole when it's still on the wheel. And so it's kind of messy and then it needs to be cleaned up. But then it's there and it's nice and level. In this case, again, I was just trying to get it to survive. So there, do we think that's big enough for bird feed? I think it is. I think that's all right. Maybe? The other nice thing about this is that it doesn't clog, which I really appreciate. Maybe we'll put some larger ones on this side, just in case that's too small. Oops. My nails cause no end of problems, and they're not even long. I was a little worried this was going to be too dry, but actually it's just about perfect. Now, the other thing I want to do is drill some little holes in this pan to allow the water to come out. And I don't know how I'm going to keep them open when I glaze it, but that's a problem for another day. So I'm going to use this tool to do that with, and really just going to drill the holes in. Kind of trying to find the lowest point so that I'm putting the hole where the water drains. And try 4 and we'll see how it goes. The trick is that I want them small enough to drain the water, but not big enough for the birdseed to go through. And there we have it. Now I let it dry and fire it. I think I'll have to take this one to the studio. It's a little big for my tiny baby kiln. The bird feeder is now fired, and I have glazed the top in Mayco's Passionflower glaze. And that looks like this. When it's fired. This is a flat surface, so it'll look a little different on this curved surface, but basically this. Based on the test tiles, this is a test tile on a red clay. This is obviously lighter than this clay was because it's reclaim, but should be close enough. So based on these test tiles, I'm thinking that Indigo Float, which is what this one is, should look really nice with the Passionflower. And based on my experience with Indigo Float, I know that if I do a lighter application, you kind of get more variation in the glaze. And if I do a nice thick application, this is what I get. So usually I do a lighter application, but I think this time I'm going to try and get it nice and thick and get this nice kind of, it's almost a mauve color down here. I did make a mistake. One of many. I glazed the top of this before glazing the underneath. So I have a decision to make whether I just glaze the top and leave it as is, or whether I risk turning it upside down and knocking off some of these crystals while I glaze the inside. Either way, the rim is going to have to be unglazed because that's what it's going to sit on in the kiln. Decisions, decisions. I'm going to think about it while I do the bottom. Indigo Float. All right, I got to show you this. I stand up for, what, a minute? And this is what happens. This is the seat that I was using. I was using this seat, Snowball. She appears to not care. Dad, I do want this to be glazed. Mostly so that it gives it a bit more protection from the elements. Do 2 coats on the inside because I don't care what it looks like. I just want it to be vitrified and have that extra layer of protection against the elements. And actually, that's not the right word. The clay gets vitrified, and the glaze is essentially a layer of glass. Very pretty glass that goes on the top. This is coat 3 for the outside. Okay, I've decided to glaze the inside of this. I've set it down very carefully on the turntable, and it's just going to have to stay here until it's done drying. I'm only going to do 2 coats because, again, I don't really care what the underside of it looks like. I just want that extra protection from the elements. I'm going to have to come around with a sponge and tidy up that edge. Fingers crossed. Very carefully. This up. And not bad. We lost 4 crystals, which we can afford to lose. Because there's a lot of crystals up there. Okay, the bird feeder is out of the kiln. I think this is absolutely adorable. I'm delighted, especially given what I went through trying to get this thing thrown. I'm delighted that it turned out as well as it did. Let's have a closer look. So the bottom, which I actually thought was going to be the wonkiest part of it, it looks pretty good. I mean, it's obviously not exactly straight or exactly round, but it looks pretty good. I don't think you're going to be able to tell when it's on the tree. All of the birdseed holes worked out fine. We'll see when we put birdseed in it which ones were the best, or maybe neither. We'll find out. The holes that I put for drainage, I don't know if you can see this, but they stayed open and glaze free. I did run the little tool through them again after the bisque firing. I don't think that I filmed that, but I kind of cleaned out each one of those. This one's a little sharp, but I cleaned them out and kind of opened them up a bit more because, of course, it shrinks as it dries. And I was worried about them basically closing up. So that worked out okay. For those of you who watched the Indigo float review, you can see the difference between just, I can't remember if this was 1 or 2 coats. I think it's just 1 coat. And then on the outside is Indigo float again in a heavier application. Now the lid is not round. It's very definitely wobbly. But, you know, I did the top in this Passionflower glaze. Kind of thinking, well, look kind of like a mushroom, which entertains me. So the wonkiness of the edge of it actually kind of adds to that look and feel. So we'll just pretend that I intended for it to look that way, right? You won't tell on me. The underside, again, with the Indigo float, it did not stick to the kiln shelf. These were fired at my community studio, so I don't have any details on the firing except that they do fire to a cone 6. The next step is going to be to put a rope through this and put some birdseed inside and see how she does. You can really see the wonkiness of the rim there. Now, if I were doing this again, I would definitely make this taller, but I did intend to make this taller. It's just I had so many problems throwing it, as you saw, that I wasn't prepared to stress the clay any further and risk losing it, as I had invested a lot into it. If I were making something to sell, I would have scrapped this and started over. This is not what I personally would have out there kind of under my brand in terms of just how the finish of it and how evenly it was thrown and all that kind of stuff. But as a personal piece, I love it. I think this is absolutely adorable. And I can't wait to get it on the tree. So let's do it. I have 2 different sizes of rope. This one is really thin, so I'm hoping that this one will work. I'm realizing just now that I have not thought through how this thing is going to attach to the tree itself. So, let's see. The rope is going to go through here and have a knot or something to keep it from falling. So something secure underneath. And then the rope's going to come through. And it's going to come through. And then what? Okay, I think this one, yep, that'll fit. So that, and then, oops, I'll go through here. Okay, so the rope is coming through the bottom. Okay, well, I tucked that back through. Oh, you know what? I know what I'm going to do. Going to tie the knot further down. And then thread this back through. So both of those through. So there's a knot that looks like it's going to have enough width to keep from poking through. And then, just in case, I'm going to tie another knot inside. Again, if I was doing this to sell it, I would probably use something a little more official looking, but I think this will be okay. And if I need to replace it down the line, then I can do that. Not a big deal. Not bad. Okay. Now, this is going to need a knot to keep this from falling off, because you want to be able to have it open up so you can put the bird feed in, but you don't want it to fall off. So, right around, oops, right around here. Another knot. And then we need to decide how we're attaching this to the tree. Okay, here's what I think I'm gonna do. It's not ideal, but it'll at least keep it on the tree for now. I'm sure there are better ways to do this. So I'm going to tie a loop in this, and then this will attach it to the tree. I am absolutely making this up as I go along. Now, I'm sure some of you watching are like Navy, Sea Cadet, not master people. So feel free to just skip this part. It's not pretty, but I think it'll hold. Oops. Now, the next time I do this, I can already tell, one thing that I would do is carve a channel or a gallery or something for this to sit on so that it doesn't slide around so much. So it kind of stays in one spot. Or maybe even, put what's called a flange that'll fit inside of this, like a regular lid. So I'm already seeing improvements for the future. Just for those of you who are interested, I'm using a squirrel-proof birdseed. Basically has cayenne pepper on it, and it seems to work. The squirrels have not been in my bird feeders. Now, see what these holes. I think these ones are clearly too small. These ones will work. So there you go. It's a good thing that we tried a couple of different ones. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It really does help the channel grow, and it lets me know that you find this content useful. Also, let me know in the comments what projects you'd like to see me take on next. Thanks for watching.